So basically, I went to the bodega and they had some random stuff. And depending on where you live, like how gentrified your neighborhood is, your bodega might have some nice produce or it might not. It might have some good rice, it might not, like depending. But I feel like there's pretty much anything edible in the bodega at any given time. So I went to my local bodega and I couldn't find any fresh greens. So I got these like canned greens. They're mustard greens, which I really like the flavor of. I haven't opened this can since I bought it, so I don't know what this is gonna taste like. But I also went to a bodega 3 blocks away from my house and I got like a bunch of fresh parsley. So that's a thing. It just depends on where you live. And I think that anything you can taste, even if you got like a can of fresh peas or green beans, like you could probably roast them the same way that I'm about to do. The first thing that we're gonna start with is this TAH-DIG, which is like a burnt, yes. You can't have Ramadan without parsley, I feel like. It's like goes hand in hand.
You absolutely cannot. And
also the garlic that I forgot to put in any recipes. I was like, everybody has garlic, but that's
garlic is.
How do you live without garlic? I don't understand. Even garlic powder. Garlic powder would be a great sub for garlic in anything that we're about to make, but right now we're focusing
on garlic has been like one of my favorite new things in this lockdown cooking. I've been like roasting garlic constantly just in the oven, and I just put it on everything.
Yeah, like a confit. You can make garlic so well just with like garlic and olive oil, and basically you can poach it in oil and then preserve it because it's saved in the fats of the oil and like use it on anything.
Wow, that's awesome.
Right now, I'm working on this pot. It's just some long grain rice. I got jasmine rice. You can use basmati rice. You can use whatever rice you can use. It'll come out differently in texture, but essentially this rice, we're doing this in a shortened, like abbreviated cooking lesson with the ingredients that we have on hand. So I found this rice. It's the jasmine rice. We're gonna cook it in 4 cups of water. So you're gonna need 1 cup of rice to 4 cups of water, which is about a quart. So I got a quart ready, and that's here. And I can send the recipe to share when this is over. I have them all right now. So you're gonna take a quart of water and put that on the rice. And then we're gonna start.
Container live.
Yeah, deli container.
Yes, restaurant live.
Deli container life. So what I'm about to do right now is just turn this up to medium-high heat and cook it. And my stove is jacked, so I'm gonna take one of these and light it. Try not to blow my house up. Okay, so you add the water to this, and we're just gonna cook it for 10 minutes, and that's gonna simulate the amount of time that you would be usually soaking the rice, but we're not gonna do that because we don't need to. So I'm gonna put a top on it, and maybe that'll help it boil faster. So we got our rice going right now, and for the next 10 minutes, we're gonna cook it at 712. I'm gonna check in on it soon. The next thing that we can start on in the meantime while the rice is going is a fava bean dip, because that's basically just taking fava beans. Yes, Liddy, I got Progresso fava beans. When I opened them, they did not smell great. I don't know how long they had been in the can. If you want to see it in the, we're gonna drain them. So yeah, throw them into a colander or a sieve or whatever you have and drain them. So kind of like meaty in texture, and that's like exciting. Also, the great thing about working with canned beans is that you don't have to soak them. They don't take forever in a day to break down. And if you have, does anybody have a food processor or some kind of like?
I only have a blender in my house.
You have a magic bullet? I don't have a food processor. I'm like the most bootleg chef ever, but if you have a food processor, use it. If you don't, you can use a blender. If you don't even have that, something else that you can do is basically break down the vegetable with acid, so you can pour like the lemon juice and the vinegar on there and just let it sit for a little while till it's soft enough to break down. So in the meantime, I think something that we can do is probably just like throw the beans into whatever food processor or type thing that you have, and break
Do you
it
put
down.
them there before you cook them or after you cooked?
These are soaked beans, so they don't need to be cooked because they're like canned. You can eat them, they're tender. They don't really taste like anything because but we're about to freak it, so
All right, so
we're gonna throw,
wait, what?
Pour your beans in your blender, and what we're gonna do is, do you have a lemon?
I do.
Okay, so grab your lemon and cut it in half.
All right.
Now, this part is cute.
Okay.
We're going to take the lemon, have it, and then when you have the lemon, you have a couple options. If you have something to squeeze the lemon at home, you can use a lemon squeezer. I use an object that looks like this. And it has a little hat, and it strains out the seeds. But you can also, if you're familiar with the lemon and how it works, it's basically just a bunch of tiny fibers inside. So if you roll it on your cutting board or on any flat surface like this, you can break down the insides to a point where you can basically just squeeze it with your bare hands, which I'm going to demonstrate because I'm strong. So what I like to do is cut the lemon in half like that. And then, yeah, pop out the seeds first, because you got a blender, so it's probably gonna demolish the seeds anyway, but my thing doesn't work like that. So we're gonna take the lemon and just squeeze it over your stuff. And you want the juice of one entire lemon in the dip. So I like to kind of go ham, squeeze your lemon out. Great job. And then we're gonna squeeze the other lemon half. Make sure you get one whole lemon in there and pour it over. Once that's done, we're going to add a splash of vinegar, whatever kind of vinegar you have. I know that wasn't on the list, but I feel like vinegar is essential. So you're gonna drop some vinegar in. You have white vinegar, that's great. I'm using apple cider because that's what I have. You don't have to use apple cider vinegar. White vinegar is better. Go for the. I probably have a jug of white vinegar somewhere, but I don't know where I put it. So we're gonna just go drop a little bit of vinegar in there. If you want to be precise or whatever, we're just like kind of drizzling the vinegar on top. And then we're gonna add a 1/4 teaspoon of salt.
What?
1/4 teaspoon, TSP. And the salt would be really good to balance out the kind of dryness and everything else. I think salt is really awesome because it kind of kicks the lemon up a notch and makes it more flavorful. But that's just my personal opinion, and that's not based in any kind of science.
Cool.
So a little salt. Okay, so once you got the salt in there, then we're going to do a drizzle of olive oil and basically blend, and that's it. Now, the greatest part about a fava bean dip or any kind of bean dip is you can use any additives you want. You can throw in tahini, you can throw in whatever spices you feel like, and that means that it'll taste however you feel like it should taste to your preference. So I'm gonna throw tahini in mine because I just love tahini in a dip. I feel like it makes it creamier. Sesame seeds taste delicious. We're gonna throw in our tahini. You gotta mix it first. That's always a rule because there's this oil like kind of film that forms on the top. Now blend.
Okay, wait, hold on. Give me 1 second.
Blend the situation.
It's like really cool.
What are you adding to it?
I have saffron and I have I think I have this weird spice somewhere. But I have this. I bought this new tahini paste. It's from Beirut. It's supposed to be like more liquidy than the ones like the other ones that I usually get.
Yeah.
But I'm like wondering if I should add a little bit more because of how runny it is.
I think you should taste it because the great thing about a blender is that it has that open top. So you can just like take a spoonful, taste it, and then add. You can always add things, but you can't take away.
No,
so think about that with your words. Think about that with your actions. You can always do more, but you can't do less. So like blend it up and then see how it tastes. And then if you want to if you want to add a little bit extra, do it. If you don't have to. That's
you just put 1 spoon pretty much roughly of tahini.
Honestly, I'm being super bootleg right now, but I think tahini it depends on your preference. It's like if you like the sesame taste, you can add more. If you want to just like make your spread creamy, then just add a little bit less. And it doesn't.
We have 2 more minutes on the rice, by the way.
Yes, we do.
All right, cool. So
the rice is almost ready.
So I don't need to add anything else right after I add the spices and stuff?
No, and we can add as we go with this. This is just a thing to just let kind of run for a second, and then we'll reconvene. Okay, blenders. Okay. So if your blender is getting kind of clogged like mine, I'm gonna throw like a little bit more liquid in there, meaning more tahini. You can kind of pick up.
Same.
And then go back in. Liquid kind of helps ease the mechanism on the inside of the blender. It's tasting kind of good so far. I just like to throw a little olive oil in there because I know it's not going to affect the taste more than I want it to.
Oh, no, I'm working on it. Sorry.
All right. So now we got a good taste. I think the texture should be kind of whipped. The tahini helps calm it down. And now you can add whatever spices you want into it. That could be oregano, thyme. If you have any dukkha, I would wait to the end because dukkha is really awesome in something like this. And will kind of be nice to drizzle on the top, any kind of nut spice mix. Also, so something that's weird about me is that I really like to have garlic that's kind of fresh-ish on my food, meaning like I like the taste of like a crisp kind of garlic, so I like to add that at the very end. And it becomes less acrid when you have something as like fatty, kind of as a fava bean. So I'm gonna break down some garlic cloves and chop them up, and then I'll use them for the topping for the fava bean dip. But we're just about ready to grab our rice off the stove and rinse it. The rice is now prepped because the TAH-DIG is basically just like a scorched rice dish. The TAH-DIG is like a scorched rice dish. You want to make sure the rice is kind of partially cooked before you put it in with the rest of the stuff that you're about to use. So I like to cook it a little bit and then strain it just for the sake of time. Sometimes people choose to soak it for about 30 minutes and then add all of the other ingredients and then put it in a pan. But there are some crucial steps once we move it into a skillet that will help kind of form the crust.
Cool.
So while we let this cool down enough so that we can drain it, You ready? Are you gonna throw your bean dip in for one more run?
I'm going to for one more time.
Okay, okay. Did you stop your rice though?
Yes, I got it.
That's cute.
I'm gonna put it on mute because it's like really loud.
I kind of like that sound. So right now, we're gonna let this cool down for a second. And then in a bowl on the side, we're gonna take our yogurt, salt, saffron, and mix it all together. Now, saffron kind of takes on a different color when you let it soak in a little bit of warm water, so you can do that if you'd like to. With this dish, the color is kind of like the signature of the dish, but it's not absolutely necessary for you to pre-soak the saffron. It just like disperses better when you do that. So we're gonna grab a half a cup of yogurt, a tablespoon of, or teaspoon of kosher salt, and yogurt, and whisk it all together.
Can I ask in the meantime, in case one wanted to do like a vegan version of it, what do you think could be a good vegan alternative to yogurt? If I mean, maybe just like a vegan yogurt or something else.
You could use, so essentially the yogurt basically keeps everything together. So any binding ingredient that you'd want. TAH-DIG is a dish where you take the rice and you toast the bottom and then you flip it over onto a plate. So anything that's going to keep it held together so that it forms that crust, you can probably use Smart Balance or any kind of margarine. Because butter is something that's also used in the dish later on. But yogurt is like a binding ingredient. You can probably maybe use like chia or flax and blend that to make like some kind of binder. It doesn't have to be a yogurt thing, but it could be something similar.
Okay.
Even blended cashews or something. I'm not sure.
One thing that maybe could work is the, you know, the chickpeas, like
Aquafaba?
Yeah, aquafaba.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's also an alternative. If you're making this dish at home and you have chickpeas and you're about to drain your chickpeas to make some kind of dip, you can save that liquid from the chickpeas and then use that as a vegan alternative to bind the rice so that you can make your TAH-DIG. So I'm gonna get some yogurt. We're gonna use half a cup of yogurt. I picked up this high-fat Greek-ish yogurt from the deli. Which kind of yogurt are you using? Did you whip yours already?
I did. Oh, I wasn't actually fasting today. Yeah.
But
I got away lucky. Yeah. But I will do it tomorrow.
Fair.
But I'm using this like Lubnit. I was gonna use it for eggs tomorrow, but I'm like, yo, let me just throw this in there.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
For yogurt, I got saffron. I love how saffron always comes in these crazy packages. It feels like you're buying drugs.
Oh, so cool! I love that.
Yeah.
Where do you buy saffron?
You could buy it at the deli. I bought mine at the deli, but I live in like a really weird neighborhood where there's like a lot of cultural crossover. You could buy yours at there's a lot of spice markets around that are kind of still open, but also like grocery stores have it as well. Like saffron, I think has a really nice delicate taste, but if you're trying to achieve the color, you can also just use turmeric and that's fine as well. Like you don't have to use this ingredient. Now this container is not opening correctly. I'm gonna focus for like 5 seconds.
What? It has the like embryo in it. Yeah, it's the SCOBY. You can make more kombucha with it, weirdo.
Yes, you can.
Kombucha is flour, okay? Make your gut all full and clean.
Okay. I'm gonna sprinkle some saffron. in here. We're going for about 1/8 of a teaspoon. It's a very small amount. Plus, it's super expensive and annoying to procure. Don't go ham on the saffron.
I have to borrow
Sorry.
your friend. Cool. All right.
And salt. So it should look like this. Some mix of spices and salt and yogurt, and then you whip it with whatever you got. Once you've done that, we're going to take some butter and melt it in a medium-sized non-stick pan. Well, I'm using something like this. I like the cast iron because it distributes heat really well, but you can also use any other kind of pan that you have at home. Huh? What did you say?
Did you say a half stick of butter?
Oh, hell yeah, I said a half stick of butter. Go ham. You can use butter or margarine.
Hey, Ken.
Hey. Yeah.
All right.
Is it a cat from outside?
Okay.
Go. Okay, so we're gonna take a half a stick of butter and melt it in this pan.
Wait, is that the cat meowing?
Yeah.
Oh
So
my
I'm trying to basically like bring in this really sweet baby called Francisco. We named him, but we're making friends with him right now and we feed him. And he comes and hangs out in the backyard and he really wants attention right now, but I can't give it to him.
Oh my god, that's like
Oh my god.
Sorry, I got a little distracted, but Francisco was like yelling at me because he wants me to love him. Food. You have food. Okay. So right now we're gonna just melt the butter in this pan, and try to break it down. If you're at home and you're impatient, you can also cut the butter up and melt it. I feel like that's way less satisfying. Huh?
Oh, my roommates are just talking in the background.
Okay.
My god, my butter is melting, ladies. I wish I had a GoPro like attached to my head. You guys could watch our video.
Maybe I'll get a headband.
I need a whole setup in here. I guess I gotta get a tripod.
Yeah, you guys are definitely carrying this because
Your Wi-Fi?
Oh, my Wi-Fi. Well, yeah, I I checked out a long time ago. I'm like an observer now.
I'm
like me.
I'm gonna
like,
buy to your place and bring this for dinner when I'm done. I'm not. Don't test me. I'll be there.
This is nice to see, though. It would be cool to like document these recipes, especially the like the on the fly substitutions that you guys are talking about.
So the next thing that we're adding while this melts down, I know this sounds like really, really indulgent, but we're gonna add a little bit of vegetable oil. If you have something like that at home, just drizzle like veggie oil into the butter. But all of this essentially is gonna help the rice form a crust on the bottom that won't stick completely to the pan. So it's part creating your own non-toxic, non-stick situation and part clogging your arteries, which we love. So see that butter action happening. We're gonna just break it all down in there. Okay, while that's melting down and not burning because we're mature and we are professional, we're gonna take the pan lid. Do you have a lid for your pan? And we're just gonna tie a napkin around it. Do you have a cloth towel? Yeah, perfect. So we're gonna tie it around it so that the edges don't wrap around the bottom and catch on fire, but it'll create a certain kind of place for heat to situate in there and steam it, which will also allow for it to kind of lift up off of the bottom a little bit better. Francisco, what a good boy. Okay, so we're gonna tie our napkin around the lid like so, and it should look like this, like a little present.
Okay. Can you put it on top?
Not yet. So next thing that's gonna happen is we're going to take the rice and mix it into the yogurt situation.
Cool.
I like to use a spatula or like a big wooden spoon for things like this. I don't know what it is about a wooden spoon. It kind of gets stuff up easier. So we're going to take our spoon and scoop out the rice and mix it in. The rice should be like basically cooked. We're going to mix it into the yogurt mixture. Okay, so now that I have most of this rice out of the pot and also covering my stove, I'm going to mix it together. But for this rendition of the mixing situation, we're going to use like either a wooden spoon or a spatula because that'll kind of get less of the rice caught in it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I guess gonna fold all the rice into that mixing situation.
Cool.
And you kind of, as you see the liquid hitting the saffron, you'll see the colors start to come out.
Oh, that's orange.
Yeah, it's very orange.
So what does the fabric do on the lid?
It keeps the steam in, so that you're with some lids and pots, it's not a clean seal. So the fabric keeps the steam in and helps like basically at the end of the recipe, the rice will like lift off of the bottom of the pan, which is kind of one of the harder parts. So once your situation looks like this, you're gonna dump it into the butter mixture and kind of lightly pack the rice down. You don't want it to be too hard down so that it burns at the bottom. I'm trying to achieve like this really pretty color at the bottom. Did you pack it down really hard? Just get a fork and lift it, boo. You can lift it with a fork. Okay, so while we approach the last 20 minutes of this cooking project, we are going to let this simmer. So we're going to take our covered lid and we're going to put it on the top like so and let that rice cook down. And the rice will create like a really pretty crust that we can eat with the next thing that we're going to cook, which is this mustard greens, as well as a quick bread. So with these greens, what I'm about to do is just open the can.
So, okay, I don't have any, actually.
If you don't have greens, we can also just make the bread first, and then the greens can just be dumped on top of the.
I have beans, like green beans. That's about it.
That's cute. So basically what you need to do with the greens is just put like a teeny bit of olive oil, saute them in a pan with a little bit of their water, and maybe a few cloves of garlic, and a little chili oil, and that's it. And it's just going to be a topping for the today. But in the meantime, since you brought that up, we're going to grab another skillet. Does everybody have another skillet? Do you have some kind of frying pan? Hell yeah. So
Oh wait, so the greens are gonna go on top of the rice?
The greens are basically going to go on top of the bottom of the rice, which would be really nice because the rice is going to be really rich and kind of.
So you have to oil in the pan, in the skillet.
We're going to make a quick bread in the skillet. I figured I'm just changing course. I'm being a little disoriented. Sorry. Sorry. For this bread situation, though, we're going to use about 3.5 cups of all-purpose flour. Okay. And just a reminder to use a dry measuring cup and not a wet one. Dry measuring cups, wet measuring cups. You see the difference. You'll get like a whole different recipe if you use something like this to measure out your dry ingredients.
Well,
it's not the same.
If you have a wet one, is that okay?
You only have a wet one? Right. So that maybe like just consider that one dry might be a little bit less than the wet, just so that you don't get like a really dry paste situation. This is a really crazy, baking is like a science. So honestly, with this cup measuring thing, it's not really helpful at all. And I prefer to go with grams. There's some really helpful websites that kind of break it down where they'll say like 1 cup is this many grams. If you get a gram scale, which is quite inexpensive on it, whenever you want to order it, maybe $14 total. You'll be able to break your recipes down in grams, and that might be more helpful because cup measurements kind of suck. They're not helpful. Right now, we've got all of this flour, and we're going to reach for 1 cup of hot water. Hot water is important. I just rinse off my whisk, really quick to use, and I'm about to whisk this. And then we're gonna reach for, made a mess. Doesn't matter, live your life. Hey, Max.
Hello. How are we?
We want like 1.5 teaspoons of salt.
Okay. Sorry, I still have to put my water in. I'm waiting for my water to get hot.
You didn't put, oh, you don't need the water to be boiling hot for this thing. Just warm.
So now I know my, like the water's not that hot. Give me a second.
Okay.
All right, how much water do we need?
1 cup.
Cool.
1 cup to 4 cups.
What are you making?
Bear bread. But there's like a bunch of different ways to make something like that. Sometimes people use yeast. Sometimes people use semolina flour. You don't always have to do that. I kind of just like to make a dough that's really simple and add a little salt to it and then just kind of fry it. So it's like a flat fried basic bread. And then you can use that to dip into whatever sauce you want or to eat. I kind of eat it as a savory breakfast pancake with the sauce that I'm going to teach you guys how to make. So this comes first and then a quick sauce comes next and then we'll be just about done. So once you have it mixed, it's going to kind of take on this consistency. I like to get a little ladle and heat up my skillet or whatever pan you have going on. The ones in the front don't light because I live in Brooklyn.
I really like the stovetop cam that you have going.
Yeah.
It's,
a lot of tape on this.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
I just taped it and prayed that it wouldn't fall on top of my stove. Okay. With this bread, once you mix the salt, the hot water, and the flour, you're going to take a spatula or a wooden spoon whatever you've got. I've got this kind of thing going on, which is like a cross between both, and it's really good for smearing things. So I'm gonna let this oil kind of heat up in the pan. And then once that's warm, I'm going to just put like a dollop on here. So basically this is enough to make about 4 pieces of bread. But if you like your bread thinner, you can make a lot more. I prefer it thinner because I don't like this doughy taste. And so we want this to kind of be spread out on the skillet. And it'll basically fry to be the consistency of a flatbread. While it's not super duper hot, I kind of like to experiment with what shape it'll take and the consistency that it'll take. So it'll be kind of flat. Also, maybe a ladle might be beneficial to use because with a ladle, you can drop a dollop in there and then smear it with the backside. And I can demonstrate that next. So we got this bread thing frying. We've got the TAH-DIG going. And for those of you who just joined us, we made a fava bean dip earlier that's really yummy that we can spread on the bread if we want to. Last thing that I think is kind of important and delicious, while this bread is going, and this bread can be an ongoing project while you're cooking the rest of the things. It's kind of cool to add one more skillet or like a saucepan maybe with a little butter or oil and then your favorite spices. And so when you toast the spices, you basically bloom them so that they open up and they're a little bit yummier and more floral and delicious, and their flavors kind of are more full-bodied so that you'll really be able to enjoy them on whatever you're making. So I'm gonna cut a little butter because I love butter on this kind of thing. My grandmother used to make this for me. Just like a little butter in a pan. And then I'm gonna let that break down. Once it does, I don't want the butter to brown, so the heat's gonna stay pretty low on this one. But once this breaks down, I'm just gonna add my favorite spices in there. Right now, I think I'm gonna use berber, but that's like a mix of cloves and cinnamon and other things you can probably get at the deli. I find it at my local grocery store. I also have family members who send it to me from back home. But there's a really easy sub for that. I just, whenever I don't have the energy to go out and buy it and I don't have any more left at home, I kind of just mix like cinnamon, cloves, and cayenne. And that kind of creates a similar taste. You can also find really easy berber recipes online, and they're pretty yummy. And even if you're wrong, you're still kind of right because that thing tastes delicious, and all of the things that are in it taste delicious on their own. If you make your own, though, and you're not a spicy, person, you'll be able to kind of adjust the level of how spicy you want it to be or not. Alternatives for this is you can just use fresh parsley on this kind of bread. You can use butter. You can use oil. You can use za'atar, whatever you have at home. But I don't know what this camera... I can't see if the above camera is still working.
Yeah, I think it's not working. I was about to tell you that the above camera has gone down.
This is what it looks like.
Oh, cool. Cute.
It just kind of poofs up, and if you have a spatula like this one, you can flip it over once you see the bubbles start to form. It's essentially a savory pancake.
Cute.
It's really nice, kind of floofy bread. Did yours come out that way?
It's a little puffy.
How is it?
Cute.
Yes, poofy bread. So we got a poofy bread going on. I always get the urge to touch this thing before it's ready, and I never do the TAH-DIG because I feel like it's making rice of any kind is always a test of patience because you always want to open the lid, and you know you're not supposed to because if you open the lid, it's going to take way longer to cook. You're going to throw off the balance of all the steam that just got built up in there. Don't do it. Don't open the lid until it's ready. I say as I open the lid. Okay. So you got your TAH-DIG. You got your bear bread. And you got a little spice mixture that's kind of a brewing in here. So the spices will then go into this butter mixture, or you can use whatever, olive oil, canola oil, just an oil base so that the spices don't burn. Then I'm going to take my spice mix. You can use whatever you like. And I'm just going to sprinkle that in there. The oil to spice
mix. What's in that spice mix? Sorry.
Cloves, cayenne, like a bunch of things. It's better. It's its own thing. It's an Ethiopian spice mix, but there are like a bunch of different ingredients that go into this that you can find or you can make your own. As I mentioned, it doesn't have to be this that you're using to dip your bread in. It could be something else, but it's just any basic bread and oil mixture. You can find this specific spice though at the store. There's like 13 different spices that go into that I cannot recall by heart right now. In the meantime, I'm just gonna mix up this kind of dipping situation. And once it's all melted together, I'm gonna let it bloom, and I'm not gonna touch anything else. You just gotta keep an eye on things at this point to make sure nothing burns because we did so much work by this point. Everything's gonna look really cute and you don't wanna mess anything up. Okay. So the bread's just about done. This is what it looks like. It's seriously just flour, water, salt, and a little oil. So I'm gonna put this on a plate.
Yay!
And now my buttery mixture is done. I'm gonna take that off the stove. And ZENAT is cooking with me.
What's the texture on the inside of the bread?
Do you want to see it? I'm gonna let it cool down before I break it open with my hands.
Cool.
It's still really hot. I just took it off the stove. Okay. Texture pick. It's a little poofy. It's not poofy in the same way where you get those strands the way you do if this was a gluten sort of bread. Like you're not, there's no yeast involved. But it's poofy. It's kind of like a pancake on the inside. It's very simple.
And it's like crispy on the outside?
Yeah, it's really crispy. It's really simple to make. You can top it though. The thing though is that because it's salt and it's flour and it's water, it's super simple. You can top it with whatever. Sometimes I top it with this spicy mix. This is leaning towards spicy. It's like chili powder, cayenne, cinnamon, cloves, a little nutmeg, a bunch of things. But in this mix, there's butter, and I put that on top, and then a dollop of yogurt, which I'll show you at the end. And this is the perfect breakfast with like a strong black cup of coffee. This is kind of what I used to eat with my grandmother. And it's really yummy and not like, there's a lot of butter involved. I'm not gonna lie. I'm disappointed in myself for not making it healthier, but it's it's a time to kind of treat yourself, I guess, right?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, there's no reason to just be disappointed or beat yourself up over that.
We should be just about done with a TAH-DIG though. Okay. So I'm gonna pull that thing off the stove because I'm really excited to flip this over. The best part about dishes like this is that they're exciting and kind of dangerous because you're pulling this really hot pan off the stove, and the next thing you have to do is flip it over onto a plate and make sure the dish doesn't fall apart. So y'all will stay tuned with me for that. I'm gonna clear off the kind of landing pad for that thing. Get ready for some danger and excitement. I'm actually probably gonna just dump it into here. Bring some pans. So you're gonna take off the lid that we've sealed with this napkin. And right now we've got like a beautiful kind of golden, yogurty, saffron-y, delicious looking rice underneath. But you can see that kind of golden crust that formed. And so all of that butter work we did earlier has basically tried to make this a thing that would be really easy to flip over. Now, ZENAT, you're my sister in arms in this project right now. Please be careful. Don't burn yourself because I will probably not be able to stop myself from laughing in a nervous way.
I'm going to turn this around. Oh my God, it's gonna be so scary.
Okay. So something that we can also do, if you have a plate that you're not, it's not, don't use your wedding china to do this, but basically we're gonna take a plate. You want a good sturdy plate that's not gonna flake out on you, a plate that has been through some times with you, and you're gonna put it over the top. One on the bottom, one napkin. Napkins, if you fold them over a number of times, they really just become external oven mitts. Like you don't even need an oven mitt. You just need a really dope napkin or like a what is it called? A kitchen towel. Okay, so I'm gonna go the hardcore way. Are you ready, ZENAT?
Yeah.
Maybe I put on I'm gonna put on one. I'm gonna go for the no slip oven mitt so I don't die.
But he just, if you're here, you're watching, support us.
Are you gonna do it with me or are you going for moral support? Okay. 1, 2, 3. And we're gonna flip it over. Ooh, and look at that. Did you make it?
No, I did.
Woo! Woo! So this is what it looks like.
Nice.
That looks amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited to eat. And I know you will be too when you make it at home.
Totally.
The next thing to do with this is honestly, I'm using my stovetop as a workspace right now, but we're just gonna top it with whatever greens you have. So I got some canned mustard greens from the store. I love mustard greens. I think they're delicious and spicy. And I've never had mustard greens from a can though, so I'm just gonna plug Glory Foods seasoned southern mustard greens one more time. And we're just gonna drain these and dump them on top. So, get my tweezers. I got some crazy kitchen tweezers. And I'm just gonna kind of... Now, the thing that I kind of saw online about this that was really beautiful, that I really wish I could eat right now, was gourmet zabza, which is a Persian dish where you basically chop like 1,000,000 pounds of parsley and make a stew with kefir lime and stuff like that. But I'm gonna taste test these Glory Foods greens to make sure that they're up to par because they kind of look like gourmet zabza, even though I know that they won't taste that way. This is what they look like. It cost me a total of $3. Delicious. Smoky in a way that's not usual for this kind of dish, but still really yummy. So yeah, just dump your greens on top, or you can have them on the side if you want to, ZENAT. You can, if you have green beans, you can fry them with garlic. Huh? Yeah, and I just went for it. So now we have this dish. You can cut open like a cake, and you have this really yummy rice underneath, and you have this really crispy top on the bottom, the top. And the other thing, the only other thing that we really need to do right now is top our Berber bread with the sauce. So for this, I'm going to get a rubber spatula because the mixture I made is a little thick. And then just drizzle that on top. So it looks really yummy. And then with whatever leftover yogurt or creme fraiche, whatever you have at home, whatever vegan alternatives you have, the important part is to get a big booty spoon and just put a dollop on top.
Do that.
It'll look something like this. Savory pancake situation. You can top it with fresh greens also. Like if you wanted to just like chop up a bunch of fresh parsley and put that on this, or fry fresh parsley, you're welcome to do that.
And the fava spread that you made earlier, that's more like as a dip, as a dipping thing?
Yeah, so that's the same bread that I made. I like to top it with a bunch of stuff and then eat it with a fork. You can also dip it. You can, I mean, I still have this situation over here. So that dish is something that my grandma would make to have like with coffee, which means that there would be people sitting for a long time. If you're playing with your food and you have bits of bread, you can also just like run it through the pan because there's still a lot of gold in here. You don't have to get rid of this. You can dip or you can pour it on top. If you have a pretty sturdy rubber spatula, you can get all of this onto there or do whatever you'd like with it. I think it would look really beautiful if you had like some kind of dukkha, which is like a just any mix of spices and nuts, like sunflower seeds, pistachios, any spices you have at home, crush it. I don't think people should be afraid to work with spices. Like if you have a little oil, throw your spices in there and it'll really elevate the flavor and kind of make it a little bit different. Cumin. Yeah. So we have two dishes, and now I'm gonna plate the fava bean dip that's been kind of chilling over here, waiting for me to pay attention to it. So earlier we made a fava bean dip. And I'll cut that really quickly and top it with some olive oil and parsley. So the best thing about dips like this is that they make these crazy like little mountains. And I think it's really easy to feel like you're like really official when you're plating something like this. If you want to feel like pro chef or chopped about it, you can make a pretty little like painting with your dip.
Can you make it into a portrait of me?
I think I'll have to try a little bit later, but I would really like to.
Cool, I'll accept that.
I think there's nothing more that I want in this world than to do that. So
Good to hear.
how's your mom?
She's chilling. She's on a shamanism workshop right now.
That's so fucking bad. Sorry, I dropped the F-bomb in the Okay. Well, yeah. Now that we got our fava bean dip out of the container and into the bowl, I think the last thing that there is to do is douse it in olive oil because we haven't had enough oil in this session. As I mentioned, this is not the healthiest meal, but it's a culturally appropriate meal and it's true to form. I'm not going to cut corners here, okay? I'm probably sure that I've used about 1 entire stick of butter and maybe 1 entire cup of olive oil and way too much yogurt, but that is the way things are done. It's a holiday. So I'm going to take olive oil and crack it open. Could you imagine if this doesn't open? It would be so annoying. Okay, here we go. And we're just gonna drizzle it over this beautiful, beautiful mountain of fava bean dip that we made earlier. Look at that. Wow. Now, I'm just gonna take like a bunch of parsley. I love parsley.
Same.
It's probably like one of my favorite things to eat. It's so fresh. I'm gonna take a bunch of parsley and chop it up and put it on top. And I got some fancy salt. You know those one occasions when you're at the deli at like 3:30 in the morning and you're like, you know what do I need? Some fancy salt. Like that's what I'm gonna buy. I don't know if anybody else thinks like that. It's like, yeah, $3 is a reasonable price for some kind of crazy chunky salt. So I'm gonna sprinkle a little bit of salt on there. And then
3 a.m. at the bodega, I definitely get like fucking Twinkies.
no, I'm just like, oh, you know what I need? Sesame oil. Some brand of. So we're just gonna top this with that. And then I think this would be a lovely topper for any kind of toast or anything like that. And it looks really pretty, and it's gonna be delicious. And this is probably the least bad thing for you, given that everything else uses quite a bit of butter. This will probably be the thing also that's the most shelf stable, so you can probably leave it in your refrigerator for a pretty long time. And it's pretty impressive looking. If you're trying to impress someone. So that's it. That's the last of it.
Cool. I'm done too.
How are you
doing? That was amazing.
You want to share your
Yes, I'm just making one last one so I can feed everybody that's around me.
Oh, you're making bear bread?
I'm excited. Here, I'll show you guys. Well, these are my, the bread.
Yeah, let's see it.
That's what.
And greens.
And this is my dip.
Woo!
Yep. It happened, ladies.
That dip is gorgeous.
Woo!
I missed the start. What was in the dip besides the fava beans?
Fava beans. I'll actually send all of these recipes to Lele if you want to access them later. But the fava bean dip was just, I threw a little tahini in there, lemon, garlic, salt, vinegar, olive oil, and then just blended it up. And you can also add whatever spices you want to at home.
So it's kind of like
if you send it to me, I'll put it underneath in the YouTube text so people can see.
Yeah, I have everything written down already, so I'll send it over to you, because I think a lot of these things are a little easier than they look. This is my first time cooking on camera, and I thought it was going to be really anxiety inducing, but it didn't seem that bad because they're family.
That was great. It was great. I'm so impressed that like in an hour you made so much food.
So yeah, and it's all from the bodega, and depending on, like I said earlier, but depending on where you live, you'll be able to have access to other stuff. Like let's say you're at home and you can't get fava beans, you can get chickpeas, or you can get cannellini beans and make a similar dip. White bean dip is delicious. Fava beans take a little bit more to break down, which is why we use the combination of vinegar and lemon, because that acid will help break down the fibers in the protein. But like the possibilities are really endless, and so if anybody's ever concerned about subs or adjustments to any recipe, you're welcome to contact me, and like I'm happy to help with stuff like that. I love doing stuff like that. So just make sure you have like a bunch of parsley when you enter any of this cooking, because that's the one thing I had to go to like 3 bodegas to find, and when I finally found it, I was like, okay, I can include this. It's accessible to some degree, and maybe it's a good excuse to take a walk. But thanks for tuning in. See you soon. Love y'all.
Thank you. Bye.
Love you. Bye.